Be careful what you wish for, especially when you're broadcasting on an open frequency. We've all been there, sitting alone, tired, wishing for a partner to help with the laundry or just keep the silence at bay. But for Alexander Philip, a throwaway joke made during a lonely graveyard shift didn't just get a laugh. It got an answer. He thought he was shouting into the void. He didn't realize the void was listening, it was hungry, and it was taking his request as a binding galactic contract. When a living warship the size of a city decloaks outside your window, just kidding, isn't going to save you. Before we dive into this tale of accidental romance and interstellar war, if you enjoy sci-fi stories that mix high-stakes action with a little bit of human stupidity, please hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm find other space travelers like you. Make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell turned on so you never miss a transmission. Now let's enter the void. The silence of Deep Space Station Oakhaven 4 wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, reminding you that you were floating in a tin can millions of light years from the nearest decent cheeseburger. Alexander Phillips sat in the flickering blue light of the maintenance bay, staring at a hydroponic filter that had been broken since the last administration. He was a monologue man. That's what the rest of the skeleton crew called him. Not because he was a great orator, but because after 6 months of isolation he'd started narrating his own life just to hear a human voice. Alexander wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a diplomat. He was a glorified janitor with an engineering degree, fixing pipes and scrubbing CO2 scrubbers for the Terran Coalition. His social life consisted of arguing with the station's AI, mother, and occasionally live-streaming his maintenance shifts to a grand total of 3 viewers, mostly bots, on the galactic net. Day 412, Alexander muttered into his headset, twisting a wrench with a grunt of exertion. The filter is still clogged with algae. The coffee machine is still dispensing sludge. And I am still the single most eligible bachelor in this sector, largely because I am the only bachelor in this sector. He wiped grease from his forehead, looking into the camera lens. He was tired. Bone-deep tired. It wasn't just the work, it was the emptiness. The crushing solitude of space that turned every minor inconvenience into a tragedy. Honestly, Alexander laughed, a dry, humorless sound. I don't need a raise. I don't need a promotion. I need a wife. Yeah, that's it. Send me a terrifying alien warrior woman. Someone who can crush a tank with her bare hands but also knows how to separate whites from colors in the laundry. If there are any terrifying predatory species listening, I'm available. I cook, I clean, and I have a mild allergy to dust mites. Call me. He chuckled at his own absurdity, signed off, and went to sleep. He forgot about the joke the moment his head hit the pillow. It was sarcasm. It was the venting of a lonely man. 3 days later, the alarms woke him up. It wasn't the standard meteor shower alarm. This was the Class A threat siren, a sound that vibrated through the floor plating and rattled his teeth. Alexander scrambled into his jumpsuit, heart hammering against his ribs. Mother. Report, he yelled, stumbling into the corridor. Proximity alert. The AI's voice was calm, which was terrifying. Unidentified vessel decloaking. Tonnage error. Tonnage exceeds sensor parameters. Alexander reached the observation deck just as Commander Sterling and the security detail arrived. Sterling was a hard woman, carved from granite and military regulation, and right now she looked pale. Outside the viewport, the stars had been blocked out. Looming over the station was a ship. But it didn't look like a ship. It looked like a creature. It was obsidian black, with hull plating that shifted and breathed like scales. Massive, organic spines protruded from its flanks, glowing with a malevolent violet energy. It was beautiful, ancient, and unmistakably predatory. Shields up. Sterling barked. Targeting scanners locked. Identify that vessel. It's not responding to standard hails, Commander, the comms officer shouted, his voice cracking. It's hacking us. It's bypassing the firewall like it isn't even there. The lights on the bridge died. The emergency red strobes bathed the room in blood. A voice boomed through the station speakers. It wasn't audio. It felt like it was vibrating directly inside Alexander's skull. It was a voice of velvet and steel, ancient and cold. The summons is acknowledged. The pact is sealed. Who is that? Sterling demanded, pulling her sidearm. What pact? Before anyone could answer, the airlock sensor screamed. The massive alien ship had extended a tendril, a boarding tube made of fleshy organic material, that latched onto the station's hull with a sickening crunch of metal. They're boarding. Alexander yelled, grabbing a welding torch, the only weapon he had. The blast doors to the bridge hissed open. The security team raised their rifles, fingers trembling on the triggers. Step by step, a figure emerged from the steam and shadows. She was tall, easily 7 feet. Her skin was the color of moonlight, pale and luminescent. She wore armor that looked like it was grown, not forged, chitinous plates of black shifting over a lithe, powerful frame. But it was her face that froze the blood in Alexander's veins. She was undeniably humanoid, but her eyes were solid pools of void black, with vertical pupils that glowed a piercing neon violet. She scanned the room, ignoring the dozen rifles pointed at her chest. She moved with a predator's grace, too smooth, too fast for a human to track. Her gaze swept over the terrified crew until it locked onto Alexander. Her pupils dilated. She smiled, revealing elongated, needle-sharp canines. She walked right past Commander Sterling, stopping inches from Alexander. She smelled like ozone and crushed flowers, a scent that was intoxicating and terrifying. Alexander was paralyzed. He looked up at the towering alien war goddess, clutching his welding torch like a toddler holding a toy. Alexander squeaked. I'm just maintenance. The alien woman tilted her head. She reached out a hand, her fingers tipped with razor-sharp talons, and gently cupped his cheek. Her touch was ice-cold but sent a jolt of electricity through his nervous system. You are the one who broadcast the offer, she said, her voice purring in the silence of the bridge. You requested a mate of the Ky'Thari. You offered your hearth and your service. She leaned down, her lips brushing his ear. My name is Xylara, Highblade of the Eclipse caste. I have heard your plea. I accept. We are now betrothed. Alexander blinked. I was joking about the laundry. Xylara pulled back, her violet eyes narrowing slightly. The Ky'Thari do not joke about the blood oath. You called. I answered. Now husband, show me our quarters. The silence on the bridge following Xylara's declaration was louder than the sirens had been. Commander Sterling was the first to snap out of the trance. Step away from the engineer. Sterling shouted, leveling her pulse rifle at Xylara's head. I don't know what kind of diplomatic game this is, but you just boarded a Terran coalition station. Identify yourself and surrender, or we open fire. Xylara didn't even look at the commander. Her hand remained on Alexander's cheek, possessive and firm. If you pull that trigger, Xylara said calmly, my ship, the Void's Hunger, will interpret it as a threat to my mate. It will digest the station in less than 3 minutes. Do you wish to be digested, Commander? Sterling hesitated. The sensors confirmed the bioship outside was powering up weapon systems that defied human physics. Stand down, Sterling ordered through gritted teeth. But you, she pointed at Alexander, Philip, you are confined to quarters. And she goes with you. Under armed guard. The walk to Alexander's quarters was the longest of his life. He was flanked by 4 Marines, but the real danger was walking beside him. Xylara moved with a fluidity that was hypnotic. Every crew member they passed pressed themselves against the walls, terrified. When the doors to his small, cramped quarters hissed shut, locking them in, the reality of the situation crashed down on Alexander. He was trapped in a 10-by-10 room with an apex predator who thought they were married. So, Alexander started, his voice shaking. You're a Ky'Thari? I thought your species was a myth. Or extinct. Xylara began inspecting the room. She picked up a dirty shirt from the floor, sniffing it with a look of intense analysis. We slept, she said simply. For 800 years. We waited in the dark between stars, waiting for the signal. The signal? Alexander asked, backing up until his legs hit his bunk. My joke. The frequency, Xylara corrected. She turned to him and suddenly she was close again. Your voice carried the specific harmonic resonance of the ancestral pact. But more than that, your blood. My blood. The pact is genetic, Alexander. She said his name like it was a flavor she was savoring. You are not just a random human. You are a descendant of the line of Philip. The line that originally forged the treaty with my people, before the betrayal. Alexander felt a cold knot in his stomach. Philip? My great-great, however many greats, grandfather was General Silas Philip. But he was a hero. He saved the sector from an alien invasion. Xylara laughed. It was a dark, jagged sound. Is that what your history books say? That Silas Philip was a hero? She stepped closer, looming over him. History is written by the survivor's husband. Silas Philip was not a hero. He was a groom. He was betrothed to my matriarch to seal a peace treaty. And on their wedding night he slaughtered our ambassadors while they slept. He used the wedding as a trap. Alexander's jaw dropped. That's impossible. Is it? Xylara challenged. Why do you think I am here? The pact demands balance. A Philip broke the peace, a Philip must restore it. Or, her eyes glowed brighter, a Philip must die to close the circle. Alexander gulped. And, which one am I? The restoration or the sacrifice? Xylara looked at him, her expression softening for the first time. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was curiosity. You joked, she said quietly. You asked for companionship. You did not ask for war. That is different. I have decided to initiate the binding. If you survive it, you are my husband. If you die, then you were weak and the debt is paid. Wait, survive what? Before Alexander could protest, Xylara grabbed his wrist. Her strength was absolute. It felt like being caught in a hydraulic press. She raised his arm to her mouth. Do not struggle, she whispered. It helps with the pain. She bit him. It wasn't like a vampire movie. It wasn't a gentle nip. It was searing liquid fire. Alexander screamed as her fangs punctured his wrist. But she didn't drink. She injected. He felt a burning substance rush up his veins, racing toward his heart. His vision blurred. His body convulsed. It felt like his DNA was being rewritten, cell by agonizing cell. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. Breathe, Xylara commanded, kneeling beside him, holding him up. Accept the gift. My venom does not kill, it fortifies. It links us. Your weakness is being purged. Alexander writhed on the floor for what felt like hours. He saw flashes of images that weren't his. A purple sky, a dual sun, the feeling of hunting in a pack, the deep, abiding sorrow of centuries of sleep. And then the pain vanished. Alexander gasped, sitting up. He felt incredible. His senses were dialed up to 11. He could hear the hum of the electrical wiring in the walls. He could smell the fear of the guard standing outside the door. He looked at his wrist. The wound was already healed, leaving behind a faint violet scar in the shape of a complex rune. He looked at Xylara. And for the first time he didn't just see her. He felt her. He felt a thrumming connection in the back of his mind. He could feel her protectiveness, her wariness, and a deep, underlying exhaustion. What did you do to me? Alexander whispered, looking at his hands. They stopped shaking. I made you compatible, Xylara said, wiping a speck of blood from her lip. You are now Ky'Thari by blood if not by birth. We are linked, Alexander. Where I go you can follow. What I feel you will know. You turned me into a vampire? I elevated you, she corrected. And just in time. The ship's intercom crackled to life. It was Commander Sterling. Philip, we're picking up multiple slipspace ruptures. Massive signatures. It looks like the rest of her fleet is arriving. And Philip, they're charging weapons. Xylara stood up, her eyes narrowing. Not my fleet, she said, her voice dripping with dread. My mother's. Alexander scrambled to his feet. Your mother? The matriarch. Matriarch Vortes, Xylara nodded. She does not believe in the pact anymore. She does not want a marriage, Alexander. She is coming to finish what Silas Philip started. She is coming to burn this station to ash. We have to get to the bridge, Alexander said, the new strength in his body making him move faster than he ever had before. They will shoot you, Xylara warned. They'll be too busy dying if we don't help them, Alexander retorted. He grabbed his tool belt, old habits died hard, and punched the door release. It didn't budge. Locked from the outside. Xylara sighed. She stepped forward, jammed her fingers into the durasteel seam of the blast door and pulled. The metal screamed and tore like wet cardboard. She ripped the door off its tracks and tossed it aside. The two guards outside stared, jaws on the floor. Move, Xylara growled. They moved. As they ran through the corridors of Oakhaven 4, Alexander felt the station vibrate. The first volley of plasma fire from the matriarch's fleet had impacted the shields. Why is she doing this? Alexander shouted over the alarms. If you're here to honor the pact, why is she attacking? Because I am the rebellious daughter. Xylara yelled back. The pact gives me the right to choose a mate to secure peace. But my mother believes humanity is a disease. She believes you will betray me just as Silas betrayed her sister. Her sister? The one Silas murdered. Vortes has held that grudge for 800 years. She let me come only to prove a point, that you would reject me. That you would be weak. Alexander stopped running. He grabbed Xylara's arm. The electric jolt of their skin touching was intense. I didn't reject you. I survived the bite. Xylara looked at him, her alien eyes searching his face. Yes, you did. which complicates her plans. If we are bonded, she cannot kill you without violating our most sacred laws. But she can kill everyone else on this station to force you to surrender. We need leverage, Alexander said, his engineer brain kicking into overdrive. You said Silas Philip was a traitor. But history says he was a hero. There has to be proof. If we can prove to my people that we started this war, Sterling might stand down. And if we can prove to your people that I'm trying to fix it. The truth is in the archives, Xylara said. Not yours. Ours. My ship, the Void's Hunger, carries the memory of our people. Can we access it from here? I can interface with any system, Xylara said. But I need a hardline connection to your station's transmitter to broadcast it to the fleet. The server room, Alexander said. Deck 4. They changed direction, sprinting toward the bowels of the station. The gravity stabilizers took a hit, and the corridor tilted sideways. Alexander stumbled, but Xylara caught him, hauling him upright with effortless power. Through their mental link he felt a surge of concern, fear for him. It was jarring. A few hours ago he was a lonely guy fixing toilets. Now an alien super soldier was terrified of him getting a bruise. They reached the server room. It was dark, lit only by the blinking LEDs of the data banks. Alexander jacked his datapad into the console. Okay, get your ship to talk to our computer. Xylara placed her hand on the console. Tendrils of black, organic fibers shot from her fingertips, weaving into the station's ports. The screens flickered and turned violet. I am searching the ancestral memory, Xylara intoned, her eyes rolling back. On the main monitor, a grainy holographic video appeared. It was dated 800 years ago. Alexander watched in horror. He saw a man who looked disturbingly like him, General Silas Philip. He was standing in a grand hall, raising a glass of wine to a tall, elegant Ky'Thari woman. To peace, the digital Silas smiled. Then Alexander watched his ancestor pull a concealed blaster and shoot the woman in the chest. The room erupted in chaos. Human soldiers poured in, slaughtering the unarmed aliens. It was a massacre. A cold-blooded execution. My God, Alexander whispered. It's true. We were the monsters. Yes, Xylara said softly, unplugging from the machine. And now you carry the blood of the butcher. I have to fix this, Alexander said, his voice hardening. He looked at Xylara. We need to broadcast this. To everyone. To Sterling, to Earth Command, and to your mother. It might not stop her, Xylara warned. Vortes is blinded by rage. Then we make her see, Alexander said. Or we fight her together. Suddenly the blast doors to the server room melted. Molten metal dripped onto the floor as a massive shape stepped through. It wasn't a human marine. It was a Ky'Thari warrior. He was bigger than Xylara, clad in crimson armor. High blade Xylara, the warrior hissed. The matriarch demands the head of the human. Step aside or be branded a traitor. Xylara stepped in front of Alexander, her talons extending, her stance shifting into a lethal crouch. Come and take him, brother, she snarled. But know this, his blood is my blood. You hurt him, you hurt me. The server room became a blur of violence. The crimson warrior lunged, a blade of pure energy igniting from his gauntlet. Xylara met him head-on. The impact created a shockwave that shattered the glass of the server racks. Alexander scrambled back, ducking behind a console as sparks rained down. He wasn't a fighter, but the venom in his veins made everything slow down. He saw the warrior's pattern. He saw the exposed cabling above the warrior's head. Xylara. Left. Alexander screamed, trusting the mental link. She didn't hesitate. She dodged left instantly. Alexander threw his heavy wrench, hitting the emergency release on the coolant pipe above the warrior. Supercooled nitrogen blasted down, freezing the warrior's arm mid-swing. He roared in pain. Xylara used the opening, delivering a spinning kick that sent the 300-pound alien flying into the far wall. He slumped, unconscious. Nice aim, husband, Xylara panted, a feral grin on her face. I'm good with pipes, Alexander managed, heart racing. Now the broadcast. He slammed the command key. The video of Silas Philip's betrayal began to upload to the omniband frequency. It was transmitting to every ship in the sector, human and Ky'Thari alike. It's away, Alexander said. Suddenly the station shook violently. The artificial gravity failed completely. They were floating. She is here, Xylara whispered. Her fears spiked through the mental link, cold and sharp. The matriarch has boarded. They floated/pulled themselves to the bridge. When they arrived, the scene was a standoff. Commander Sterling and her crew were held at gunpoint by a dozen elite Ky'Thari guards. In the center of the room stood matriarch Vortes. She was magnificent and terrifying. Her armor was gold and black, her presence suffocating. She held Commander Sterling by the throat with one hand, lifting her off the deck. "Where is he?" Vortes demanded, her voice shaking the bulkheads. "Where is the spawn of Philip?" "I'm right here," Alexander said, pushing off the wall and drifting into the center of the room. Xylara was right beside him, her hand gripping his arm. Vortes dropped Sterling, who gasped for air. The matriarch turned her gaze on Alexander. You have the stink of him. And you have the eyes of your sister," Alexander said, his voice surprisingly steady. He didn't know where the courage came from, maybe the alien DNA, maybe just the fact that he was done being afraid. Vortes hissed, stepping forward. "Do not speak of her. Your ancestor murdered her under a flag of truce." "I know," Alexander shouted. "I saw the footage. And I just sent it to the entire galaxy. Everyone knows, Vortes. Everyone knows we betrayed you. The lie is over." Vortes paused. She looked at her wrist display. The video was playing. Her soldiers were watching it. The human crew was watching it. The anger in the room shifted to shock. "It doesn't matter," Vortes snarled. "Blood calls for blood. Then take mine." Xylara stepped between them. "I have bonded with him, Mother. I have given him the blood oath. If you kill him, you kill a member of the clan. You break the sacred law. You bonded with a parasite?" Vortes screamed, slapping Xylara. The force of the blow sent Xylara spinning into a console. "Don't touch her," Alexander roared. He didn't think. He acted. The adrenaline and the alien venom surged. He didn't attack Vortes. He wouldn't stand a chance. He attacked the situation. "Computer," Alexander yelled. "Authorize Protocol Omega. Dump the station's atmosphere in Section Bridge. Override code, Philip Alpha 1. It was a gamble. As a Philip, he hoped some ancient command code still worked. Authorization recognized, the computer chirped. The airlocks blew. The wind roared as oxygen was sucked into space. The Ky'Thari guards, surprised, grabbed onto railings. Vortes dug her claws into the floor. Humans scrambled for emergency masks. Alexander didn't grab a mask. He grabbed Xylara. He wrapped his arms around her, anchoring them to a bolted-down chair. "Mother." Xylara screamed over the comms. "Look at him. He risks his life to save me. He is not Silas. He is Alexander." Vortes looked at the human, gasping for air, his skin turning blue, yet refusing to let go of her daughter. She saw the violet rune glowing on his wrist. The hatred in her eyes didn't vanish, but it wavered. The law was absolute. A mate who protects the Warbride is worthy. "Seal the airlocks," Vortes commanded, her voice booming over the comms. The blast doors slammed shut. The hiss of repressurization filled the room. Alexander gasped, sucking in sweet oxygen, coughing violently. Vortes walked over to them. She loomed over Alexander, who was still clutching Xylara. "You are foolish, human," Vortes said quietly. "You almost killed us all." "I was just trying to stop a family argument," Alexander wheezed. Vortes looked at the video playing on the screen, the evidence of human treachery. Then she looked at the rune on Alexander's arm. "The galaxy knows the truth now," Vortes said. "The humans can no longer claim moral superiority. You have shamed your own species to save ours." "I did what was right," Alexander said. "I'm done with the lies." Vortes turned to Xylara. "He is adequate. He is small. And soft. But he has the heart of a sentinel." She signaled her guards. "We return to the fleet. The attack is suspended. We will await the Terran diplomats. If they come with lies, we burn them. If they come with truth, we talk." She looked back at Alexander one last time. "Treat her well, Philip, or I will return. And I won't knock." With a shimmer of teleporter energy, Vortes and her guards vanished. The aftermath was a strange mix of celebration and paperwork. Commander Sterling was furious about the airlock stunt but couldn't deny that Alexander had single-handedly stopped an interstellar war. The broadcast of the Philip betrayal had caused a political earthquake back on Earth. Governments fell, apologies were issued, and for the first time in history the Ky'Thari and humanity were at a negotiating table, not a battlefield. Alexander stood in the airlock bay of Oakhaven 4, a duffel bag over his shoulder. He looked different. He stood taller. The violet flecks in his eyes caught the light. "You don't have to go, you know," Sterling said, leaning against the bulkhead. "We could use an engineer who can hack alien bioships. I think I'm done with filters and fuses, Commander, Alexander smiled. Besides, the wife wants to travel. Xylara was waiting by the entrance to her transfer pod. She wasn't wearing her armor today. She wore a simple spacer's jumpsuit, though it did little to hide her intimidating stature. Are you ready, husband? She called out. The word didn't sound like a threat anymore. It sounded warm. Alexander walked over to her. He reached out and took her hand, the hand that could crush steel, and interlaced his fingers with hers. The empathic link hummed with contentment. So, Alexander asked as they stepped into the organic interior of her ship. Where are we going? My homeworld, Xylara said, the pod sealing around them. The nights are long, the gravity is crushing, and the wildlife tries to eat you every hour. Sounds charming, Alexander laughed. Do they have laundry machines? Xylara smiled, a genuine, sharp-toothed grin. No. But I believe I promised to protect you. I handle the monsters. You handle the cleaning. Deal? Alexander said. As the void's hunger engaged its slipspace drive, streaking away into the endless dark, Alexander Philip realized something. He had asked the universe for a wife as a joke. The universe had taken him seriously. And looking at the terrifying, beautiful, deadly woman beside him, he realized it was the best wish he had never meant to make. He wasn't a monologue anymore. He was part of a conversation that would last a lifetime. And that is the story of how one man's boredom saved the galaxy and landed him a vampire wife. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It tells us you want more sci-fi romance and action. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the playlist on your screen for more tales. Until next time, watch your frequencies and be careful what you ask for.